If you drink tea every day, you need to hear this. Popular brands across Britain are hiding problems most shoppers never see. Independent tests have found pesticide residues, microplastics slipping into your cup, and premium blends that are really factory floor dust sold at luxury prices. We reviewed the biggest tea brands in the UK, looking at sourcing, storage, and what actually ends up in your mug. What we uncovered is alarming. 8 trusted household names are not what they claim to be, and the worst offender might already be sitting in your kitchen cupboard. Number 8, PG Tips, the nation's favourite that quietly became factory floor sweepings in a pyramid bag. PG Tips has been a British institution since 1930. The iconic chimp adverts, the familiar red box, the reassuring promise that only the top 2 leaves and bud are used in every blend. But open one of those pyramid bags today and look at what is actually inside. What you will find is not premium leaf tea, it is tea dust. In the industry, tea is graded by leaf size and quality. At the top sit whole leaf grades like orange pekoe. At the bottom sit fannings and dust. These are the smallest particles left over after higher quality grades have been gathered and sold. Traditionally, fannings and dust were treated as the rejects of the manufacturing process, the sweepings, the leftovers, the bits no serious tea maker would put their name on. Yet that is precisely what fills millions of PG Tips bags every single day. PG Tips uses what is called the CTC method, crush, tear, curl, a mechanical process invented in the 1930s to get tea from plant to bag as quickly as possible. The result is tiny uniform pellets that brew fast and strong, but lack the complexity and depth of properly processed leaf tea. Independent reviews describe it as bitter, harsh, and lacking the depth of flavour that makes tea drinking enjoyable. One tea expert wrote that the quintessential tea taste that makes tea drinking such a joy simply is not there. And here is the real problem. Because these granules are so fine, they release tannins rapidly, creating that bitter, astringent edge that overwhelms any subtle flavour. The antioxidants that make tea healthy, studies show they are significantly lower in dust-grade teas compared to whole leaf varieties. You are paying for a product marketed as premium while receiving the lowest grade the industry produces. But wait until you hear what independent tests found lurking in the next brand on our list. Number 7, Tetley the Green Box, with a chemical problem nobody wants to talk about. Tetley sits in nearly as many British cupboards as PG Tips. It is trusted, familiar, safe, or so we thought. Because when CBC Marketplace commissioned independent laboratory testing on popular tea brands, the results were deeply troubling. 8 out of 10 brands tested contained multiple pesticide residues. Some contained traces of up to 22 different chemicals, and half of those tested exceeded allowable limits set by government regulators. Tetley was among the brands flagged. Of particular concern was the presence of endosulfan, a chlorinated insecticide chemically similar to the infamous DDT, which was banned decades ago. Endosulfan has been banned or phased out in over 80 countries, including the European Union, the United States and Canada, because of its links to hormone disruption and neurological damage. Yet traces were detected in Tetley Pure Green Tea. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency confirmed in a peer-reviewed study that pesticide residues in dry tea leaves do make their way into brewed tea. The paper concluded that these residues may pose a risk to consumers. Environmental lawyer David Boyd called the findings very worrisome, pointing out that so many pesticides on a single product suggest poor agricultural practices that pose risks to farm workers, the environment, and ultimately to the people drinking the tea. Tetley sources tea from India and Argentina, countries where pesticide regulations differ significantly from those in the UK. And while the company insists its products comply with food safety standards, compliant does not mean clean. It means acceptable levels of contamination. It means within tolerance. It means you are still consuming trace amounts of agricultural chemicals every time you make a brew. If that concerns you, the next brand exposes a problem that hits even closer to home. Number 6. Typhoon, a British classic that has quietly lost everything that made it worth drinking. There was a time when Typhoon meant something. Founded in 1863, it built its reputation on quality. Generations of British families grew up with Typhoon in the cupboard. The distinctive branding, the promise of a proper cup, the taste that felt like home. But the Typhoon sitting on supermarket shelves today is not the tea your grandparents drank. It is a shadow of what it once was. Typhoon uses the same CTC processing method as most mass-market brands. Crush, tear, curl. Fast, cheap, efficient. The tea arrives in bulk from Kenya and Malawi, is blended according to a formula, and packed into bags weighing just over 3 grams each. The focus is consistency and cost, not flavour or quality, and consumers have noticed. Reviews describe the modern Typhoon as weak, watery, and tasteless. One long-time customer wrote that the tea has got weaker and weaker. Another said it is grey rather than brown. Many have abandoned the brand entirely after decades of loyalty, saying it is time to leave. When tea bags were first introduced, many noticed the quality dipped compared to loose leaf. That is because bags demand smaller particle sizes. Smaller particles mean faster brewing, but also faster release of bitter tannins and reduced complexity. What you lose is the layered, nuanced flavour that comes from properly processed whole leaves. Taifu no longer owns its own plantations. It sources from the global commodity market, blending whatever is available to hit a price point. That means the tea in your box could come from anywhere, processed by anyone, stored for who knows how long. The heritage branding remains. The quality behind it has quietly disappeared. But cheap tea and declining flavour are not the only things hiding in your cup. What the next brand releases into your brew is something else entirely. If you're learning something new here, hit subscribe and keep these eye-opening breakdowns coming. Number 5. Lidl Knightsbridge Tea, the budget buy that is shedding billions of plastic particles into every cup. Lidl's Knightsbridge Red Label is one of the cheapest teas on the market. For budget-conscious shoppers, it looks like a sensible choice. Decent flavour at a fraction of the price. But a growing body of research suggests you may be paying for that bargain in ways you never imagined. A landmark study published in Environmental Science and Technology found that steeping a single plastic tea bag at brewing temperature releases approximately 11.6 billion microplastics and 3.1 billion nanoplastics into a single cup of tea. Read that again. Billions of particles. In one cup, researchers at the University of East Anglia tested multiple tea bag brands as part of a BBC documentary investigation. They found that tea bags containing polypropylene, a common heat-sealed plastic, released the highest levels of microplastic contamination. The tea bag that leached the most particles was one containing 30% polypropylene. More recent research from the Autonomous University of Barcelona confirmed the scale of the problem. Polypropylene bags release approximately 1.2 billion particles per milliliter of brewed tea. These particles are small enough to be absorbed by human intestinal cells. The study found microplastics even entering the cell nucleus, where genetic material is stored. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Around 96% of tea sold in the UK comes in bags. Most of those bags contain some form of plastic, whether in the bag material itself or the heat seal that holds it together. Budget brands are particularly susceptible because cost-cutting often means cheaper materials. Lidl has not publicly disclosed the exact composition of its Knightsbridge tea bags, but independent testing consistently shows that lower-cost tea bags tend to use polypropylene seals, and polypropylene releases the most particles. The long-term health effects remain unknown, but early research links microplastic exposure to inflammation, oxidative stress, and potential disruption of gut bacteria. Scientists warn that chronic exposure could set the stage for immune system problems that take years to manifest. And every morning, millions of Britons are dosing themselves without realizing. You thought you were saving money. You may have been swallowing plastic instead. And the next brand reveals a different kind of compromise almost nobody notices. Number 4, Asda Smart Price Tea. The bottom of the barrel dressed up as everyday value. Asda's Smart Price range exists for one reason: to be cheap. And when it comes to tea, cheap means something very specific. It means fannings, the smallest, lowest grade particles the industry produces. Tea grading is a precise system. Whole leaf grades sit at the top, broken leaf in the middle, fannings and dust at the bottom. These are the tiny fragments left after all the premium grades have been sorted and sold. They brew quickly because of their enormous surface area relative to size, but that same property makes them release bitter tannins almost instantly, creating a harsh, astringent cup that overwhelms any subtlety. Reviews of budget supermarket teas consistently describe Asda's offerings as the weakest. Independent taste tests found they looked and tasted the thinnest compared to other own brand options. A Which? Survey gave Asda's in-house brands the lowest possible score of 1 star for food quality. 1 star out of 5. The problem with fannings goes beyond flavour. Smaller particles mean faster oxidation during storage. Faster oxidation means more rapid loss of the beneficial compounds that make tea healthy. By the time Smart Price tea reaches your cup, much of what made it worthwhile has already degraded. And here is something most people never consider. The beneficial catechins and polyphenols that give tea its health properties are concentrated in whole leaves. When those leaves are crushed into dust, those compounds become unstable and break down faster. You're not just losing flavour, you are losing the entire reason tea is considered healthy in the first place. When you steep a bag of Asda Smart Price, you are not really drinking tea in the traditional sense. You are drinking a fast infusing, high tannin extraction designed to produce colour in the cup as quickly as possible. strength without substance, the appearance of tea without the experience. And if you assume a step up in price means a step up in quality, the next brand proves the opposite. Number 3. Sainsbury's Red Label aggressive tannins, masquerading as a proper British brew. Sainsbury's Red Label sits in a strange middle ground. Not quite budget, not quite premium, priced to suggest quality without actually delivering it. And the result is a tea that relies on one crude trick to create the illusion of strength. Tannins. Tannins are naturally occurring compounds in tea that create astringency. In proper whole leaf tea, they balance with other flavour compounds to produce depth and complexity. But in lower grade teas, particularly those made from over-processed leaves, tannins dominate. They hit your palate first and hardest, creating a bitter aftertaste that lingers long after the cup is empty. Independent taste tests described Sainsbury's Red Label as slightly too bitter. That bitterness is not a sign of strength. It is a sign of imbalance. It is what happens when tea is blended for colour and punch, rather than flavour and nuance. The over-reliance on aggressive tannins suggests something about the underlying leaf quality. When tea lacks natural complexity, manufacturers compensate by selecting varieties that produce strong, dark liquor quickly. The cup looks robust, it tastes harsh, and your body processes all those tannins, which in excess can interfere with iron absorption and irritate sensitive stomachs. What makes this worse is the psychological trick being played. When consumers see dark, strong-looking tea, they assume quality, they assume depth. Sainsbury's knows this. The blend is engineered to look impressive, while costing as little as possible to produce. You are not buying flavour, you are buying the appearance of flavour, a visual deception in liquid form. There is also the question of sourcing transparency. Sainsbury's provides little detail about where its Red Label tea originates or how it is processed. Without that information, consumers cannot assess whether the leaves were harvested ethically, stored properly, or blended with any care beyond hitting a price point. You are trusting a supermarket to prioritise your cup over their margins. This is the quiet deception of mid-tier supermarket tea. It looks better than the budget options, it costs a little more, but underneath the packaging, it is playing the same game: cheap leaves, fast processing. Tannins doing the heavy lifting to disguise what is missing. The next brand takes this illusion global, and the result is a cup that has been stale for longer than you would ever believe. Number 2. Lipton Yellow Label, the world's best-selling tea that has been sitting in warehouses longer than your furniture. Lipton Yellow Label is everywhere. It is in hotels, offices, airports and supermarkets in over 150 countries. That global reach is presented as a strength. In reality, it is the source of the problem. When tea is shipped around the world, stored in warehouses, transferred between distribution centres, and finally placed on a supermarket shelf, time passes, a lot of time, and tea does not age well. Research published in the Journal of Food Science and Technology tracked antioxidant levels in stored tea over 12 months. The findings were stark. Antioxidant activity remained relatively stable for the first 90 to 120 days after packaging. After 180 days, rapid decline set in. Beyond 330 days, tea lost up to 60 to 75% of its initial antioxidant content. Lipton's global supply chain means tea leaves are harvested in Kenya, India, Sri Lanka or Argentina, shipped to blending facilities, packaged, redistributed to regional warehouses, and eventually stocked in stores. By the time that box reaches your trolley, months have passed, sometimes a year or more. The company itself states tea can be enjoyed for up to 18 months after purchase, which tells you exactly how long they expect it to sit on shelves. About 20 different teas go into making Lipton Yellow Label. That blending is designed for consistency, not freshness. The result is a tea that tastes the same whether you buy it in London or Lagos. But same does not mean good, it means muted, flat, a shadow of what freshly processed tea should taste like. The antioxidants that make tea healthy have largely degraded. The volatile compounds that create aroma have evaporated. What remains is colour in the cup and a vaguely tea-like flavour. You are drinking the ghost of tea and paying full price for the privilege. But somehow, the brand at the top of our list commits an even greater betrayal, because this one charges premium prices while delivering the same low-grade product you just saw exposed. Number 1. Twinings. Every day, the heritage brand charging champagne prices for the same dust as everyone else. Twinings has been selling tea since 1706. 300 years of history, royal warrants, elegant packaging, a name synonymous with British tea culture. And that reputation is precisely what makes Twinings Every Day such a profound betrayal. Because when you open a box of Twinings every day and examine what is inside, you find the same thing as the budget brands. Dusty, finely chopped particles. Tea so processed it falls through the holes of a standard infuser. The company itself describes these small pieces as fannings, left over after higher quality grades are gathered and sold. This is not premium tea. This is reject tea in a premium wrapper. Customer reviews paint a damning picture. Long-time Twinings drinkers report quality reaching its lowest point. One wrote that it is just like drinking expensive hot water. Another noted they always end up with tea dust in the bottom of the cup. Complaints about shrinkflation abound. Boxes that once contained 100 bags now hold 80, while prices have climbed steadily higher. When contacted about the quality of their loose tea, Twinings customer service confirmed it is granular tea. That is an industry term for the same dust and fannings found in budget brands. Yet the price remains premium. You are paying for the heritage. You are paying for the packaging. You are paying for 300 years of reputation. What you are not paying for is quality tea. This is the greatest deception in the British tea market. A brand that trades on legacy while quietly delivering the same mass-produced, CTC processed, low-grade product as supermarket-owned labels costing a third of the price. The tea has changed. The formula has shifted. The quality has declined. But the pricing and marketing pretend nothing has happened. Twinings Everyday is not an everyday tea. It is an everyday insult to consumers who trust that a premium price means a premium product. And that is the uncomfortable truth about the entire industry. Heritage does not equal quality. Higher price does not mean better leaves. The brands we trust have quietly reduced their standards while maintaining their margins, and nobody told you until now. So what can you do? Start by reading labels. Look for whole leaf options. Consider loose tea, which tends to be higher quality than bagged varieties. Seek out brands that disclose exactly where their tea comes from and how it is processed. And if you have time, try making tea the old-fashioned way, with leaves that unfurl in the pot instead of dust that dissolves in the cup. You deserve to know what you are drinking. Now you do.